Hello and welcome back to Creator in Conversation. I'm your host, Owen McCauley. Today's episode is going to present a unique conversation. It's taken from a class provided by Sougata, who is an AI and data analyst expert. He spoke with the students at TASQ Art about how AI could be used in the field of comic books, but we're not exploring generative AI, that is, how to use AI as a tool to create artwork, to generate artwork. That's something which we don't endorse here at Tala Academy Sequential Art TASQ Art. However, we do acknowledge and accept that AI is a tool that's prevalent in many tools that aren't traditionally associated with AI. For example, Photoshop has certain AI functions, but we're staying completely away from the generative AI side of things, and we're more concerned about how AI might be used as a tool for marketing. So whether you are an indie creator, whether you are a seasoned professional, everyone has to have a presence online, everyone has to have a presence to connect, to find work, to be able to promote your work. And these social media networks and channels as well, they're so heavily involved in using AI tools. Is there a way that we could use these tools to, analyze our audience, to understand our peak times, and to help us, to how to get our best post across, but not to generate our work. We're not interested in that. That's not what comic book creation is about. You've heard this discussion take place many times across this podcast in particular. We've heard some of our guests use it as a research tool. Others have fared away from it completely. Others recognize that it's here, but see it no more disruptive as then when Facebook or Photoshop first was introduced into the industry. But for now, in today's talk, Sougata will talk you through how AI might be used to assist you in marketing, to help you towards monetization, to discover the best strategies available for you. This is taken from a recorded class which he took with our students just a short while ago as well. And if this is something which interests you, I would recommend seeking out Sougata and his company as well. And he leaves his contact details towards the end of today's episode. Like last week, where we had the character design masterclass with Gary Erskine, I recommend that you check out the YouTube channel for today's episode, where Sougata has a number of slides presented. The question around how to use AI ethical and if there is an ethical way to use it, that's something which we won't solve in today's conversation, but it will, however, open up a really insightful and interesting discussion, which I'm sure you all going to really find interesting. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of Creator in Conversation, looking at AI as a marketing tool for comic creators with Sougata.
I'm Sougata Bhattacharya. I'm basically, I was born in India and then I moved to France. And I work as a data consultant, data and AI consultant. And I come from a background of advertising and marketing, basically, right? And I'm located in Paris, so that's where I'm now. And I'm holding this conference from Paris. So I speak several different languages, including French, English, and American English, and all types of variations of English and so on. So in case you have any questions about words and expressions and things, please feel free to ask. In fact, then I can explain. In fact, so that's the English part. And now this presentation, it could be a bit geeky, in fact. So I hear the word social media a few times, but then I guess that, marketing and AI and data, it's basically it's very, it's a lot for a lot of geek and how do you say the techie people, in fact, are involved in these such work. In fact, so I try to simplify things as much as I can. In fact, and I can, so in case you have any questions, since we are not a very big group, you could just stop and, just interrupt and ask. Just raise your hand so that I can see and I can answer your questions. Okay. So I hope everyone can see my slides. So AI and data-driven marketing for comic book artists. So it's not only social media, it's going to cover different types of uh, data and AI operations. So you'll have to know that it could be a bit deeper than just social media, right? So the first slide is my introduction. It's my biography, in fact. So the professional roles I've held, in fact, over the years. So currently I'm data marketing consultant for my own firm called Data Iterate, located in Paris. And I'm also a lecturer for comic studies and digital humanities in India, in a university in India. I'm also a speaker, so I'm often invited to different seminars and gatherings to talk about data and AI. So I do a bit of data AI literacy sessions through conferences and webinars. And in terms of my education, so I have an MBA, business school education from Paris in specialized in data again. And I did a professional thesis and industry report on data-driven marketing. Now, comic art expertise. So I'm basically from the field of comic art. So I don't really collect or don't have time to read comics, but then I'm more into the comic arts specialty, right? So I've been a comic art strip art collector from 2009 up to present. So comic strip art meaning it's all the classical artists like Alex Raymond and so we have John Prentice, Rip Kirby, and those kind of things. Vintage comic art. And I'm also a comic art advisor to collectors and estates, so especially people who want to sell their collections or want to buy collections, in fact, build a collection. So comic art. And I have creative pursuits, so I'm involved in the arts. So I'm also a sound artist and electronic experimental musician, in fact. So this is globally what I do, in fact, in life, right? So now, so in this session, in fact, what we're going to see is at the beginning, we are going to talk about auditing, and we try to tailor the key concepts to your current career stage. So you might be a beginner and you might be an advanced, um, say, professional in comics. So it's not the same way that we're going to talk about marketing. So we'll have to tailor the key concepts to your current stage in your career, of course, right? Then we'll have to talk about the foundations of digital marketing, talk about the metrics and so on, because you'll have to know the basics before we get into the digital and the AI and the data aspects of marketing, basically. That's my idea to start from the very beginning. And then we get into the AI layer, meaning that we talk about how to apply AI on top of the marketing foundation. And so the three major aspects of AI that I'm going to talk about are the LLM chats, the ones we are familiar with, like ChatGPT and Gemini or Claude, Anthropic, and so on. So LLM chats. Then you have automation. There's a notion of automation. So it depends at which point of career you are. But one day, if you're working for a company and you have a mass of information to diffuse, in fact, on internet, then you probably need automation, right? And then even advanced is the custom AI models. So one day, if you are interested in the subject, maybe you'd be interested in building your own custom AI models so that it's a replica of who you are as a marketer or as an artist or so on. So this is the it's a it's a more higher level of expertise that you're going to need, in fact, if you want to build your own models. So this is the AI layer. Then you have the data layer. So how to turn data into actionable insights. So when I talk about data is when you've been using social media, and so the data that you collect, so you can transfer the data onto some kind of spreadsheet or some data repository. But the idea is to then use that data and to use them in a way that helps in your career to further your interests and to further your artwork and to promote and to reach your goals, in fact, basically. So the use of data, it's not just collecting data. And at the end, we'll talk about the key takeaways. We're going to do a summary of what we have gone through this session so that you kind of note down the key points of this lecture, right? So this is how I plan to go through the session. So if you don't have any questions, we can jump right in. Yeah, so we're going to go a bit further than just social media, right? So okay. So generally, in all my data literacy and AI and conferences, I generally start with this slide, which is like which is like a statutory warning. In fact, ones like you see on your packet of cigarettes and so on. So, so it's like we're talking about data overload and sustainability in the age of AI. So by 2030, as you can see, we're going to have 660 zettabytes of data in the world. So this is going to be a problematic situation because we'll need data centers. And as you might know, that today we are building data centers all over, especially in the desert and the wilderness, you say. And so this is going to have an impact on ecology and environment and so on. So every time we send an email or a text message or take a photo with your smartphone and so on, so we are increasing the data load in the world. And one day this might become a problem, a serious problem, basically. So just keep this in mind, in fact, whenever we talk about data. And but at the same time, I have no solution in what to do otherwise. In fact, we don't really know, in fact, how not to use computers and data to do the work we do today, in fact. So so this is the thing. So as you can see, I've listed the problems. It's the energy. So we have the problem with energy consumption, water scarcity, because you need in order to the data centers to function properly, you need a lot of water, basically. And so we have this question of water scarcity. So we need to get the water to cool the systems and so on. Then you have the e-waste mountain, meaning the data servers, the hard disks, and so on. So this is an issue, in fact. So now we do not know what to do with the e-waste and electronic waste. And of course, not to mention the privacy erosion and the digital footprints that we leave behind. So we have a problem with, various problems related to our privacy and our private data and so on. So we'll have to be a bit mindful of these aspects when we deal with data. Well, that said, now let's come to the subject of data-driven as a comic book, being data-driven as a comic book artist, right? So so this is the introductory slide where you say talent attracts attention, but data builds consistency, meaning that, you can be a talented, budding new artist, but in today's world, we're competing with millions of people on the internet. And so we have countries like China and India, which are coming up with a lot of talented people using digital tools and so on. And so it's become harder and harder, in fact, to differentiate oneself, talents. And so the trick is to use data to build consistency, meaning that if you, let's say, one of your art posted on social media gets, let's say, 10,000 likes, but the day after people move on to something else, so uh, so it's good to have talent, but I guess if you can collect and if you can use the data properly, then you can have, let's say, interaction and how do you say, engagements over time in the long run. In fact, this is what you want. In fact, if you just a talented artist for 10 days and then people move on to other things, then it could be a problem. So you can use data in fact to build consistency. Um, Now, social media platforms are very interesting, and I guess that some of you are already on social media. And because they're rich with insights about your audience, because you get audience interactions, you have likes, you've got comments, you've got shares, and so on. And so it's much better than having, let's say, a website which is static and where you do not have analytics plugged in, so you do not really know how your audience is behaving on your website or how they're surfing through your portfolio and so on. So social media gives you direct insights on how your audience is behaving on your platform, right? So this is very important. So to have social media. And in marketing, we use a word called omni-channel. So omni-channel is a word used to designate different types of social media platforms. It could be Instagram, Twitch, Discord, and Reddit, or Facebook, and so on. But so it's good to try and experiment with a variety of different types of social media and see what works best, right? So this is an advice. And then after a point, which is giving you the best return on investment, and then you can focalize and focus on that particular platform. Okay. Now, every platform tracks user behavior like shares, clicks, and engagement. So, um, so these are the metrics. You could call them the metrics, in fact, that you can collect and you can track, you can note in a Google Sheet or spreadsheet somewhere. And then you could analyze the likes and comments, and then you could readjust your post and see what works. And in the end, when you collect data, when you're data driven, you do not have to guess and fumble and think what should my next drawing be? What should my next post be? In fact, so you know that what works, what doesn't work. And so you need to build your own strategy based on the data that you have collected or you've just observed, right? So now you can adapt your strategy to uh, the successful to your successful post, I guess. Yeah. Any questions up until now? All good? Great.
Uh, okay, if you use several channels like Instagram and Twitch and let's say X, formerly known as Twitter, how would you collate those insights given that like Twitch would be more, I don't know, is there like a tool that would put them all together into like a spread, into an Excel or something?
So the thing is that every platform, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and so on, they have a special section which is that when you start a creator account, let's say on Instagram, it gives you access to the insights. So you could just go into the insights and look at your metrics. And then if you just have two or three posts with not many engagements and interactions, then you could just open up a Google Sheet and you open a tab for each of your social media platforms, let's say Instagram, Facebook, and so on, and you can uh, note down the date, the type of post, number of likes, number of comments, and so on. So it's pretty easy, in fact, to do it, but by yourself manually. But if it becomes like a massive kind of data collection machine, like say, like brand like Coca-Cola or someone, or even Marvel and DC and all, they'll have hundreds and hundreds of data points. Then you probably need to use an aggregator kind of professional tool to collect all, to get the data, source the data from all different platforms into one central area. But that is a professional, big company approach of doing things. So at the beginning, you could just go into the insights tab of your platform, look at your metrics, and then just note them down on a Google spreadsheet. This is what I'll suggest, right? And anyway, so we have in data science, we have a term called small data and big data. So big data is 1 million lines. In fact, when you cross 1 million lines, then it becomes big data. And anything under 1 million is considered as small data, right? But then when you have a Google spreadsheet, I think it's probably not a good idea to go beyond, let's say, 500 lines maximum, right? So this is how I'd suggest you start, in fact, with your data journey. Did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, right. Okay, so this was an introductory slide. Then, I'm talking about audits and how to tailor the key concepts to your current career stage. So you might be a beginner in the thing, or you might be someone who's leading a department, like I don't know, Jim Lee in a big company and so on. So it's the career stage is not the same. So you'll have to tailor the data and the marketing operations to your career level and see what works at your stage, right? So we'll see, in fact, the different stages of your career and how to use data and what to do, right? So if you are a beginner, early stage, beginner level, emerging artist, that kind of thing, then your goal is what? Is visibility and discovery. So you want people to discover your profile, your artwork, and so on, visibility. And in reality, well, technically, probably have no audience, a very limited portfolio. So the best use of data in AI is going to be trend discovery. So you use AI tools to analyze what style, themes, or characters and what are trending on platforms like Instagram or Webtoon, right? Content optimization. So when you write a post for a caption for your Instagram post, then might as well use something like ChatGPT or some other tool and ask ChatGPT to make it SEO friendly. Just note down this word SEO, is search engine optimization friendly, so that your caption is how do you say, is recognized by the web crawlers and the robots, and they'll boost your post, in fact. Right? So this is important. So before you make a post, just go on one of these AI tools and ask them to write a caption for you, in fact. And just say that I want to maximize my reach, in fact, in your prompt, right? So to maximize reach means to maximize visibility in other people. Okay. You have to be careful with the use of hashtags. So I guess now Instagram has limited hashtags to 5 in France at least. And it's not a good idea to use too many hashtags because it confuses the algorithms, basically, right? And you have to know that all these platforms, they have algorithms that work behind the scene, and the algorithms are upgraded every 6 months, 1 year. So let's say a year back, Instagram put a lot of importance on reels. So if you are posting reels, they get seen more easily than if you just post a photo or something. But today, what they prefer are shares and saves. So if people are sharing your post and saving your post, then they will boost your art and your post much more than reels. So this is a change in the algorithm. So you got to follow the updates in the algorithms every year, right? For each platform separately. So then AI can suggest you hashtags, your posting times. So you got to be careful when you post, because if you post at a time when your audience is sleeping in the other side of the world, it's probably not the right moment, right? And so you got to time your post accordingly to your audiences. And what else? Um, so you got to be, if you're posting on YouTube, let's say, you got to be careful with your thumbnails. So the thumbnail photo has to be of high quality, and it has to be, it's one of the most important things that generates views, right? Okay. Then there's a notion called audience signal. So see how people are reacting to your post and note them down, and then just follow these signals for your next post, in fact, to so that you have more and more visibility of your content, right? So these are some of the things that you need to do if you are at the early stage or beginner or emerging artist, right? Any questions? Okay. Now we go to the mid stage, a growing audience, an independent creator, and all. So your goal is engagement and monetization. So meaning you want, people to engage, and you want to convert people. In marketing, we use the word conversion, convert, and convert doesn't mean the same thing, in fact, in different cases. So for you, perhaps conversion means someone purchasing your artwork. For someone else, it could be someone who saves your art. So it depends on your marketing strategy and objective. So the notion of conversion is subject to change, in fact. And so you have some fans, some traction, but you got inconsistent income, but you have some income. So that's the mid stage level, right? So what will you do? You need to do audience segmentations, right? So you got to know what their age group are, what their interests are, and where the people are located. In fact, people who buy your art or who follow you and so on. And then you'll have to tailor your posts. So you go to I don't know, if you're into superheroes, then you need to see if they prefer something vintage or something cartoony or something illustrative and so on. So go to personalize your post. Um, Try different, how do you say, different color schemes or different positions and so on. So it's called A/B test. Um, so A/B testing is like you try two variants and see which works better, right? Titles and story hooks and so on. And there's a notion of funnels, right? So you got to see what brings your audience to what leads them to a certain action, and then what happens after that, and how they convert. In fact, so you got to follow them down that pipeline. So that is called a funnel, in fact, in marketing, and it's called funnel building. So at this stage, your goal is to convert the followers and into paying supporters. You need the money, right? and understand why people follow you. So you need some insights, and your data and AI is going to help you do that, basically. So it's like a strategic assistant. It's not just a tool, right? Okay. And finally, when you become the big boss of Marvel or DC or big company, so your goal is brand expansion, scalability, and the established IP means intellectual property. So your IP is well known all over the world. You got a stable audience, and so you get publisher deals and so on. So this is an advanced stage, but you have to know that when we scale a business, when you grow the business, is as difficult sometimes as when you're a beginner, basically, because you just need to sell more and more and more, in fact, to survive, and your costs are higher, and you have to break even, and pay your employees and so on. So it's difficult as well, in fact, to get this done. So how do you use data and AI? Predictive analytics, so you can forecast what is going to happen next year. In fact, so we need a lot of data, in fact, do forecasting. So we use predictive analytics. IP optimization, meaning that when you have a brand like Marvel and DC, and you know that these brands are going through transformation, and people see them differently because the generation has changed, and we have younger people who are in the market and so on. So you'll have to adjust your IP to the market. Then also the question of global targeting, meaning uh, DC probably doesn't have the same content in India as it does in the Americas or in Europe, in fact. So we have to you have to produce local content, global targeting, automation at scale. So you have massive volumes of data that is coming in. So you'll have to organize scheduling, repurposing, and distribute content across platforms. And it's not one person who's going to do it. He has to use some kind of automation, in fact, at this stage, in fact. So at this point, what matters is to build long-term brand. You have to long-term brand building, maximize lifetime values for fans, and strategic partnerships, publishers and studios, and so on. So it's at a different level, in fact, we are. So we have different companies like, I don't know, Fantagraphics or IDW and other companies in America, in fact. So probably not as big as DC and Marvel, but they have these operations as well, I'm sure, right? Any questions? Great. So this is, we're trying to see at what career stage or how you could use data at your point of career. Let's put it that way. Now, some of the foundations of digital marketing, in fact. So you have to understand that the tools like, let's say, Instagram or TikTok or some kind of, digital marketing tool, it's just a tool. It's like a machine. You need to have an idea of what you want. In fact, you need to have a strategy. You got to have the concepts of marketing in general, and after that, use the tools like as if these are just like instruments, right? So the tools can't be something that is going to decide your future, but you need to have some kind of a global idea, an overview of what your goals are, right? So first of all, in marketing, we have this notion of product market fit and branding, right? So product market fit is, let's say, I am interested in comic strips, vintage comic strips. Now, if I'm getting posts and on my feeds about Marvel and DC, I'm probably not the right person, right? Or I am a comic strip art collector, and I have a collection on CAF Gallery or Comic Art Fans and so on. So I'm probably not the right person to push an emerging artist, draft drawings, unpublished art, and that kind of thing. Probably, so you'll have to find the product that fits your market, fits your audience. So this is very important, in fact. So find and understand your niche audience. So sometimes when you start off in your career, you'll probably have just a few people, 10, 20 people who are interested in what you're doing, but that's okay, in fact. Then from that point, you have to keep growing your audience, in fact. So not everyone is audience, and that's a strength, in fact, because you have a small group of people who like what you do, and you can take it from there, in fact. So the goal is right people and not more people. So when you have these 100, 200 likes for a beginner account in Instagram, well, these are just in marketing, we call them vanity metrics because it's good for your ego and your probably self say esteem or pride, but it doesn't convert, but it doesn't give you converted customers or long-term followers and things like that. So don't go by the number of likes and the number of so you have to forget the vanity metrics and think about the product market fit and see who the genuine followers are, who are genuinely interested in what you're doing, right? And the other notion that is very important in marketing is personal branding. Personal branding meaning you got to be different than someone else. Let's say, well, let's say Frank Miller. When you look at Frank Miller artwork, Sin City or some Dark Knight. So he has got a very characteristic style, in fact. So when you do your artwork or you're a marketer or what, so you need to build your characteristic signature style, So you need to have your personal branding. So you got to define your unique style, showcase a consistent artistic voice. So don't change every post if it looks very different what you're doing, then it's just going to confuse your audience, right? So you need to build a unique style. It has to be instantly recognizable. So when I look at, let's say, Jim Lee, in fact, when he draws those night skies with the starry, the star effect that he does with his brushes, and also you probably know better than me, in fact, what he does. But so you know that it's his unique way of drawing, in fact. Then you got to engage with your audience. You got to build real, human relationship with the fans through social media and community interaction. So sometimes we have people who just post and then either for some reason or the other, if they do not interact, they don't reply to the comments, they are not engaging with their audience, and especially at the beginner level, in fact, you got to build that audience. And you got to showcase a story. So what people like nowadays, in fact, more and more, is that you got to be a storyteller. So you got to say why you did that particular drawing or why you decided, to work on that comic book. So people like stories, in fact. So you got to be telling people stories through your social media, explaining, your journey and your thought process or something like that, your art process. And so this storytelling ability, in fact, so this builds your personal brand. And so these two ideas, product market fit. So do not show content to people who are not interested or probably not, into your product, and personal branding. So, by the way people speak, I've seen the conventions when you have these artists, they speak and they talk, everyone has their own personal way of communicating. And so that builds their personal brand, right? So these are general ideas of marketing. If you don't have a solid foundation, an idea of these aspects, then the AI, data, and digital marketing, social media is not going to work. So these are the fundamentals, right? Now, the notion of marketing mix, that's another basic idea in marketing, meaning that you got to think about different ways of promoting and helping your sales, basically. So you use your digital tools, everything that you have, social media, reels, posts, and carousels, and so on. You also be present through the print media. So you need to have some kind of books, and signs, and posters, and so you need to have the print. So when you're going to some comic convention and you are sitting at the artist alley or something, you need to have those printed material to show. Physical presence is very important, in fact. So, you know, over the years, I've noticed that when I meet someone personally, in person, if I at a comic convention or somewhere, I tend to remember them more than when I just see them on a list and likes on my social media platform, right? So this is very important. So just remember, when you speak to people in person, when you are showing your art through a magazine or digital tools, and also this is all different media, and this is the notion of the marketing mix. And then once you have done that, you'll see which brings in the most return, right? So sometimes for certain people, I know that the print, and when you show fans your printed artwork, they're much more interested than when they see it on a screen, right? So this is very important to understand marketing mix. Right. Any questions up to now? Great. Now, in marketing, we talk a lot about KPIs, key performance indicators, right? So now we have social media. We know all about social media. So we have the question of growth. So the number of follower, conversion rates. You have engagements. So engagements, the most important engagements today are saves and the shares. Visibility, it's the reach, in fact. So visibility, the metric in social media is called views. So the number of views, people who've seen it. And conversions, meaning it for you, conversion could be art sales or the number of contracts signed and so on. So these are the metrics. Now, if you do not define your success, what success is for you, can't measure the progress, right? So you'll have to know what you are thinking about when you talk about success, right? So what success is for you is probably not the same for the other person or the other artist. So you'll have to define your own metrics. So these are the KPIs. So keep your KPIs in mind, set them down, and then try to track them over the years, over the months, in fact, right? Okay. Now, the other notion in digital marketing is attribution. Now, the question of attribution is, the question I ask is, I posted everywhere, Twitch, I don't know, Instagram, X, or whatever. In fact, I posted everywhere, but what worked? Because you suddenly saw someone buy your artwork online, but you don't really know what brought him to that decision. Well, how did he decide that he wanted to buy and collect one of your art, in fact, or your comic book, right? So this is something. This is a problem of attribution. Then now, did this follower come from TikTok or Instagram? Was it the format, the content, or the caption, in fact, that attracted the buyer? In fact. So these are little small metrics and details that are important in digital marketing, in fact. So sometimes growth feels random when you do not track what drives it. So you'll have to try to know, in fact, what converted the person, what incited him to buy the work of art. So let me take a break and ask you, in fact, what works in your case? And what have you noticed? And whatever you do, in fact, in whether you're selling a comic book or a piece of art or pitching a project, what works for you, in fact? Can anyone just step in and tell me, in fact, if you ever thought of this idea of attribution? Yeah, please.
I used to do a lot of posting art on Twitter when it was Twitter, not X.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you get a retweet from like Michael Allred, you'll get 8,000 views on a Saturday. I even got a like from Carrie Fisher, rest in peace, you get over 200,000 likes. But I remember one post that did also over 100,000 views because it was art of the X-Men, the Lengwing, the second iteration with Wolverine and Storm, and it was by Ed McGuinness. So my audience was people, I would say, in their 30s with a penchant for comics from the 90s that loved the original X-Men and other type of Marvel. So not really young audience, but more middle-aged, and they reacted very well to that post. That post just blew up. And then there was a She-Hulk that also it got a lot of traction. That was very nice. But for me, that was the sense of when to post,
Exactly.
what to post, and then Twitter was great on seeing. I remember something that did the attribution that would tell me this link came from Facebook or this link came from other places that I don't quite recall what if it was like a website or even I think it was like a blog that would tell me these views came because I would post about I wrote articles and I would post about them, and then I got some to 12,000 views, and I would put some on Facebook some years, and then it would tell me this came from Facebook, this came from Twitter, this, and that helped a lot, and it's just exactly what you're describing.
Well, I could be a little bit technical, and I can tell you that when you have an URL on a website, in fact, and on the URLs, often you see there's a question mark. Everything that comes after that question mark symbol on the URL are things called the UTM. So the UTMs are, say, unique identifiers that lets the marketers know where the audience came from, where he clicked, which website he clicked, and whether it was a social media or some link or somewhere. In fact, so we can in fact track and follow the
You
last
could, yeah.
click. Yeah.
You could just drop them in Excel and then just see what they are and then collate them.
Yeah. So if you have the URL, And sometimes the marketers, they get the URLs that are listed on some kind of dashboard, and you look at the dashboard and you see that there's this URL that's listed with an UTM. There's this guy came from this so Facebook or Instagram and so on. So there's a way to track this, but this is
Mm.
more you can learn about UTMs if you just go on Google. I think you can learn more
Yeah,
details
yeah.
how to do
Yeah,
it. So,
because this is good because you can make an Excel formula, bring
yeah.
me everything after the question mark, and then then collate the ones with the same words. I like this. This is a great tip. I didn't know this. Thank you.
Yeah. So you got that is a digital tip. Otherwise, in an artist alley, I have a few friends who always come and buy my artwork because they follow me. So I know why they buy and why so that is a different way of tracking, but it's also tracking. In fact, you're doing that in a physical world. It's not in a digital world, but so you have to understand what works with your friends as well. Yeah, please. The next person.
This is going back quite a few years ago now, but on Instagram, I definitely found when I began to share more videos of me talking about my process or studio tours and notebook tours, it really it increased my engagement and therefore then knocked on to more sales. Because I was forming like a somewhat personal relationship with people. So I found like before I would have sold stuff through galleries internationally, like to collectors that were anonymous to me. But I found the more I began to engage through Instagram mostly, it was during COVID, with the God, I can't remember the name of the scheme. The Artist Pledge, I think it was called. But a lot of people then within Ireland began to support me when that personal sort of interaction and somewhat of a relationship began to form.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay. So it's good to go deep and fair and have granular information, and we call this granular data. In fact, to see what within that interaction did you say something, in fact, which kind of, or did you for instance, me, I know that when I see spaceships and rockets and so on in a panel, comic book panel, then I'd probably going to buy it. In fact, so those are little triggers. In fact, that helps. So you have to know the triggers. Yeah. Okay, and we have another one. Another, yeah.
I think I find that it's really like following the timing of trends. If I really wanted engagement to my accounts, that really helps. I remember there was like a piece I did um, that I drew it just on the day that a movie was released, and it got like a lot of engagement. I reposted the same image again on like a year later, and it got like 500 likes, that kind of thing. So like a huge drop. So it's definitely like a whole timing thing. But on the other hand, I find that there's some pieces that do less on these metrics, but they come out better on sales, if that makes sense. So maybe I did a lot of work like for fun. I would maybe draw just a lot of fan art, for example, and that sure sometimes that gets more engagement, but it doesn't really get anywhere. It's just more of like an ego thing sometimes, like when I was younger. But then whereas now like that I'm doing more work on my like portfolio, it doesn't get as much engagement, but the engagement that I do get has returns. So
Yeah.
it's very much like there's different markets, different things. And also I find it really, as you said, it really depends on the platform and the people that are on the platform as well. Because I find there's the same exact pieces posted on the same day at the same time, towards the same countries. They have different levels of engagement and different types of people on them. And yeah, I just find it really fascinating.
Sure. So the thing is, what I've observed is that I live in different cities, and so I'm from India, and in India,
Mm.
Instagram is not that popular yet. In fact, among
Mm-mm.
followers, so we have more. It's much more Facebook. In fact, and when it comes to comics and posting my original collection and of art and all that, I'd probably avoid Facebook. In fact, I'm more Instagram because it's more image oriented. So,
Yeah,
yep. So
yeah, definitely. Like I think when I moved countries as well, I moved literally just a year and a bit ago, to the UK. And yeah, the platforms, like, when I go to artists alleys and they ask for my socials, they're asking for different things. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't have that yet. And so that was a whole other thing I had to learn as well. But yeah, definitely vibe with that.
So anyway, so this is the notion of attribution. So attribution is you got to know what worked, in fact, at the last moment, what convinced the person that this is the reason why I'm going to buy it, in fact. So what really triggered that final decision to buy? In fact, this is the notion of attribution. So it could be various, reasons, or it just could be just one thing that you did that worked. In fact, you'll have to, the best is to find that out, in fact, what really worked. Now, simple models in digital marketing, getting a bit technical here, but we have the notion of the last touch attribution. So where did the person surf and where did he go, in fact, just prior to buying, in fact, prior to making the purchase? And so that's called last touch, in fact. What triggered the final action? Multi-touch attribution. So sometimes you need to show multiple times the same thing. In fact, when I want to buy something, actually, and it's slightly bit expensive than my budget or what I then when I look at it several times, in fact, on heritage auctions, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the previews 2 or 3 times or 4 times, then suddenly it comes up on my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed, and then I kind of, it helps me make up my mind if it's to bust that money. So so that is the notion of multi-touch attribution. Then you have pattern observation. So track what consistently leads to results. So when you see this person, in fact, I posted something on Instagram instead of Facebook, and he kind of converted. He bought something, and then I did the same when he bought. So there's a pattern that comes up, in fact, over time. And this works for everything in life, basically. There's a pattern, in fact, that we follow. And if you are able to observe and detect the pattern, I think you'll be able to get better sales over time. Anyway, so this is attribution. Then we come to the other notion, which is very important for digital marketing. It's called contribution. So what drives your growth? So you just look at the pie chart. So you have, let's say, what percentage of growth comes from which type of effort? So here you see reels and carousels and 15 collaborations and so on. So do more of what contributes most, in fact. So this is basically the idea. But if you know that you're going to get into a different type of artwork, that you're doing, your professional objective is different, then you'll have to find a way, in fact, to change your posts and get those people who were coming from reels to see differently, to go to the carousel. So you have to know how to guide them to your new objective, in fact. So there are tricks, in fact, and there are ways to do this. So, but then the basic notion is contribution. You have to know what contributes, in fact, to your biggest number of views or your sales and so on. So this is another important point. Now let's come to the key metrics that actually matter. So in data and digital marketing, you can have 100 metrics, you can have 50 metrics, 25, but they're just too many. And it's hard to keep track of everything on a daily basis or weekly basis. And so you have to kind of filter out and shortlist, just a few metrics that really would matter, that you really need to follow, in fact. So whether it be reach, impressions, visibility, or engagements, and saves and shares, follower rate, and so on. So you'll have to find the key metrics that matter to you, in fact. So the likes are nice, but saves and shares build careers. So today, if you have saves and shares on Instagram, then you know that your posts are doing well. And so this is the key metric in Instagram at this moment, saves and shares. Okay. Well, I guess that was the digital marketing basics, fundamentals. Now we come to the AI layer. So this could become a bit technical, but so I'll try to go slow with them. So the first thing are prompts. So in fact, it's quite a debate at this time the AI LLM AIs, in fact, and certain countries. We have the AI Act that has been adopted, and we have all these ethical debates because AI is basically using your data to train their models, and then they are coming up with artwork which are not yours, and so on. And so it's quite a debate at this moment. But the thing is that in the world, basically, we have massive investments in AI from all the big tech giants. And we do not know, in fact, I mean, how this is going to all end in a few years. We've got layoffs, and well, let me not become the prophet of doom, but AI is quite a big revolution at this moment, which is what's going on. And at this moment, we talk about augmented humans, meaning that you're supposed to use AI and you're supposed to supervise the results and so on. But at one point, in fact, when you use automation and AI agents and so on, it is going to take over and do the job. In fact, with a simple prompt, you can do a lot of things. In fact, so this is going to come perhaps within another 3, 4, 5 years. In fact, so this is the problem with AI, and also we have the AI models. We have a problem with massive data and the energy that is required to train and to for inference of the models and so on. So this requires power and data centers and so on. So it's an ongoing debate, in fact, and we do not have a solution to the problem. And then, of course, mass layoffs and if, let's say, if a publisher can do a comic cover just by prompts, why is he going to pay someone else? Because he's already cash trapped and he doesn't have a lot of money, tight budget, and so on. So he's making his comic covers by AI tools and so on. So I don't know what to say. So, but anyway, so when you are prompting, in fact, when you are using LLMs, so the first thing you need to do is to have access to several different types of LLMs. Meaning, if you have ChatGPT, also try to use Gemini or Claude or Mistral, which is the French LLM, and so on. So try different models and see what works well with what you wish to do, in fact. So for me, for instance, when I use let's say Gemini for text writing, sometimes it's I probably prefer ChatGPT for writing certain types of documents, official letters, and so on. But if you're writing captions for an Instagram post or let's say some kind of portfolio resume and things, I think ChatGPT does a pretty decent job, in fact. But you need to have you need to have you need to know how to prompt properly. In technical terms, we call this prompt engineering. And so we have, let's say, the 4-part prompt. This is the standard structure. So first, to cite the role. So you're a social media strategist or you're a comic book artist. Then you talk about the context. I'm a comic book artist. I'm creating this. Then talk about the task. Write a caption to do this or do that. Then give the constraints, something, the restrictions, make it engaging and include a hook, or make it interesting for people within the age group of this and that. So and so on. So this is the structure they're supposed to follow, in fact, when you prompt in an LLM, right? So better prompts, better results. Of course, when people prompt well, then get the results that they want. Certain companies, they have predefined prompts. So they use prompts that are already predefined. So it's like prompt presets. You just click on that and it works because they know it's a repetitive kind of task that they're doing. So yeah, like I said, test and compare the LLMs, please, before you start using them on a daily basis. But then I think that it's a very good idea to get to know these tools, in fact, because tomorrow maybe this is just going to be AI. So that was the first aspect of AI, which are the chatbots, right? So now let's look at the second aspect, the way to use AI in the comic book, let's say, marketing field. So which is called the AI marketing automation. right? So this is of interest if you are posting in volume, when you have a certain volume of posts. And let's say I've drawn an example for a weekly system that you can set up. So this is called automation. And so first you draw your first 2 or 3 pages, put it into an AI tool that splits them into different content. Then AI would automatically generate the captions and the hooks. Then they have a scheduler AI that is going to post across the platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, and so on. Then AI is going to automatically track the performance, and then it'll give you the recommendations that you're going to use, and you double down on what works, in fact. So this is typically a workflow for AI automation, right? So like you see, upload one comic page, AI is going to slice it up, turn it into posts and videos, right? Captions. It's going to schedule everything, meaning that it schedules a post to be for Monday evening, another one for Thursday morning, and so on. It's going to track your performance. And if you can set this up, and you have you are a person that posts regularly and you do not have enough time, so you can cut your marketing time by 70%, in fact. So this is what a lot of marketing agencies do at this moment. So this is called marketing automation. You understand this global concept, right? So it's just an overview of how things work. Okay. Now in this automation field, we'll look at the details a bit more. So first, you are you're going to do the input and file handling. So this is when your page enters the system, the digital system. So you've been using Adobe Photoshop or something, and then you upload that file on a Google Drive or Dropbox. So Google Drive is basically you're uploading your page onto the cloud. So you're auto-syncing to the cloud, basically. And then from the point you put it on that, let's say Google Drive or Dropbox, it's going to trigger the automation workflow, right? This is like a start button of the system. Then, it goes to another tool that is going to do the panel slicing and formatting. And so you have, I don't know if you're familiar with these things like Adobe Sensei, and it's inside the Photoshop tool. It's for editing and precision editing and so on. Then you have another tool like Runway ML, in fact, image tool for generation and motion. Then of course, Canva, I'm sure. So it's going to resize instantly, cloning it into 20 different sizes for ads and media, right? So different tools that interact, and the tools are interconnected, right? So the role here for these tools are to detect the panels, they crop automatically into verticals, reels, and squares like Instagram, generate multiple aspect ratios, because that, let's say, for instance, Instagram, you'll have to post of a certain dimension and size, which is not the same as, let's say, YouTube and so on. They do the work for you, right? And so this is the first step. Then we go into another layer of AI automation where tools like Runway ML or Picker Labs, CapCut and all, so they are going to process your file further, and they're going to add zoom, shake, parallax effects, then turn panels into videos. Picker Labs, it adds creative effects automatically. CapCut is going to assemble and do the trend polish. So this is a new term, in fact, trend polish, meaning when you are posting on Instagram, you need to find the trending audio. So if you just post and just use your favorite song, it's probably not going to get the same number of views as when you post with the trending audio, let's say, auto captions, transitions, and so on. So these are the things that are required when you post, in fact, on social media, right? So this can be done automatically through AI. So this is another way. And then the next step is going to be captions, hooks, and content writing. So content is very important in marketing. So here you have tools like Jasper, brand voice and campaigns, copy AI, workflow automation, Notion. I don't know if you know this tool called Notion. It's a tool for managing your files and information. So it's going to generate the hooks, captions, hashtags, series descriptions. You can predefine your tone, cinematic, dark, and Marvel style. It's pretty easy. You just define your tone and it's going to do the work for you, right? So It's another step in AI market automation that you could, use later on. Then the final step is probably the scheduling and the distribution, automatic automation backbone. So use tools like Later, Buffer, Hootsuite, and they're going to queue up all the content, and they're going to post across platforms at the scheduled time. Optimize timing, of course, when they see that you're not the audience is not awake in America, they're going to wait until another moment and then post it later on. So this is what makes your system hands off, in fact. So this is the notion of automation, and in every tool we have AI which is embedded. So even if you're now using Photoshop, I think more and more increasingly you're going to see AI features are going to be embedded in those tools, in fact. So indirectly, you're using AI anyway, even if you avoid ChatGPT or when you're watching Netflix, it's collecting your data and it's going to process your data and so on. So it's you can't escape AI. It's everywhere now. Then the final thing you have to know that we have all these tools, but they are interconnected with this glue kind of tool, which are called tools like Zapier and Make, Integromat. So these are the connective tissue of your tech stack. In fact, it links apps, and they do the interconnecting and they move data around. And so this is one of the things that is used for the automation workflows, right? And then you have additional tools you could learn, like marketing visuals and mockups. You can find tools that do the messaging automation. You can email, send automatic emails and so on. And analytics and optimization, of course. So this is another way of using AI. Then now, if you are an ambitious person, and this is going to probably be trendy within a few years, where you build your own AI, meaning your AI, you're building a custom AI model. So that means this is an AI model that does exactly what you do. In fact, this is totally personalized, meaning that you have a certain way of, let's say, drawing comics or doing digital marketing. And suddenly, one day your boss says that, well, we have this chap in in India, he can do the job faster than you and he does it for half the cost. Okay. So now if you have your own AI model, you say, all right, I'll do the same. So then you can use your model and the model is going to, draw exactly like you do. And it's going to maintain a consistent style across the social media posts and, and it's going to speed up. And if you're doing marketing, it's going to speed up the marketing content creation with AI-assisted art and so on. So it's like a replica of who you are, basically, because it has been trained on your personal data. It could be data of your artwork, or it could be data as a marketer, basically, right? And so it's like personalized ChatGPT. It's you, basically, replicated in an AI. So it could be used for comics creation, or it could be used for marketing and so on, right? So it's your personal model. So this is called a custom AI model. So in this slide, basically, I have used this for marketing examples, but it could be used for anything. You could make your own AI model for a legal counsel or an accountant or whatever you do. In fact, the AI can do for you. Right. So this is like an advanced user of AI is going to build his own model, basically. Now, this is very technical. I don't think it's, we need to go too much into these details, but so you have pre-trained models like Stable Diffusion. So they can be trained on your personal data. You can upload your artwork and all, and you can train that AI model with your data so that it can do the work for you. So this is how we actually build the custom AI model, because to build something like OpenAI, it costs millions and millions. It's out of reach for 95% of the world population. In fact, so we can't make it, OpenAI, in fact, that easily. But you can make your own custom model, which is pretty easy, in fact, to do that. And this is, if you have this slide, you'll know how to navigate through that task. Well, is everything clear, in fact, or do you have any questions in all this? because I think we have about, what, 15, 20 minutes? All right. Anyway, so now let's come to the data layer, right? So that was all. We spoke about AI. So we spoke about three ways of using AI. One is the ChatGPT type chatbots. Second was automation, AI automation. The third was the custom AI models that can replicate all your tasks and do work exactly as you do, right? So that is custom AI model. Now let's come to data. Now, in order to AI to function properly, you need a lot of very high quality data, basically. So we got to start building your own data sets. This you can do. This is easy. Just take Google Sheets and start building your own data sets. So if you're an artist, you can scan your art with labels and annotations for style, themes, and characters. So you can do your own, you can build your own data sets, and you can make your own repertoire, as say in French, of your stylistic aspects of how you draw this and that and so on. So you can make you can use images. So when I speak about data, it can be images, it can be audio, it can be video, it can be text or numbers, letters, alphabets. Everything is data. Basically, on the internet and in the digital world, everything is data. Any website, anything, and you have algorithms to manipulate the data. So you have just two things. You got data and you got algorithms. That's how it works. So you can build your data tables on, let's say, Google Sheets. You can have your audience and contact data. These are very simple, like phone numbers and emails and so on. But be careful, in fact, when you store data, uh, personally recognizable data, that means you can identify a person with that data. You've got to be careful, in fact, and you have to protect that data so that your Google Sheet is not hacked or anything, you have data leaks and so on. Then you can store your performance and marketing data. In fact, whatever you've noted down, collected from your social platforms and so on, you can note them down, write them down on your Google Sheet, spreadsheets. You can write down industry trends, tracking to see what's working at this moment, art styles, emerging markets, and so on. So just use Google Sheets or Excel. If you're fluent with these things, it's enough, in fact, to begin with. And be careful with data quality metrics. So if you are noting down, if you write wrong data, or if you do not write them properly in the right columns, or it's half-written columns, empty columns, and so on. So you have to be careful about these things, because then you'll have problems with the marketing operations, also with AI. So you've got to be accurate and think about completeness, consistency, timeliness, validity, and uniqueness. So do not have any duplicate data, right? Validity means data that you collected 2 years back is no longer valid. In fact, it doesn't work anymore. So you got to update the data and find something, which is new and fresh. Okay. Now, from the data, you got to come to some decisions. So where you're going to use the analysis method. So you've collected data with spreadsheets and you've built a data set. Then you've done the cleaning, structuring, and you got to normalize your data. That means if you have a column with dates and you have dates in the English system, then you have the American system, you got to put them all in one normalized system. So this is called normalizing data. Then if you have, let's say, 500 lines, or let's say 1,000 or 10,000 lines of data and code, it's probably better to pass on to a big data system and learn languages like Python and SQL and so on. So this is to manipulate big quantity data. And so when you do data analysis, you can do descriptive analysis, you can do comparative analysis, trend analysis, audience segmentation, predictive analysis, and so on. So these are the different analysis methods that are used by data scientists and data analysts, in fact, in all sectors, from comic books to finances and everywhere. In fact, we have these are the standard practices and approaches of data analysis. So now I'd suggest, if you're interested in the subject, just get down to Coursera or those kind of websites and find a course on Google Sheets, and that'll be enough, I think, to begin with. Now, if you go on Google Sheets, you can all do all these operations like data entry, editing, formatting, data formulas and functions, analysis like pivot tables, graphs and charts, filters and sorts, and importing data, cleaning, merging different columns, removing duplicates, and so on. So these are different operations that you can do with Google Sheets already. So if you are interested, just go in this direction, use this tool and learn this well. And now this is something which is data that is pre-analyzed that you get on your Instagram Insights Insights page. So this is my page, for instance, if you're interested. So I kind of collect this from time to time. I see the number of followers, the progress of followers, what works, and content types, followers, non-followers, and so on. So these are the metrics that are pre-calculated, and it's already analyzed by the AI systems within Instagram, and they just give it to you, in fact. But the thing is that then you'll have to note them down, and you have to use them to improve your performance on Instagram, right? So because just simply collecting data and then doing nothing with that information is a pity, in fact. So you've spent some time doing this. So sometimes I do this and I kind of readjust my posts. So this is typically my page, in fact, what I see through the Instagram analytics, right? Get used to consulting the data and the insight page and on a regular basis and see what works and readjust your posts. And this is the basic thing that you can already do, I guess. So yeah, and okay. Now, a few guardrails, in fact, because when you're talking about data and AI and so on, so you got to be careful, like you said previously, financial data, legal data, and also be careful and do not upload and sensitive data on your chatbots or on the internet in general, which is because once you put it up on some website or some page on the internet, in that case, you have probably clicked on the terms and conditions where they can use your data to train their models and so on. So whatever you post on Instagram, you have agreed to their terms already, in fact, so meaning that the AI is going to pick up your data and is going to train their models. So yeah, got to be careful, but I do not know how, in fact. So you just have to start using pen and paper and or use some tool that is not connected to the internet, your personal local server or something like that, in fact. So you got to protect your personal information. And of course, the basics, do not upload photos of your, I don't know, your holidays and personal family, children and so on. You got to protect those information. And so in data science, we call them PIIs, personally identifiable information. So never use those because then the marketers are going to pick up on those information. They see a picture of you sitting, I don't know, in a pub in London, then they're going to push those advertisements, targeted ads, and so on. So you got to be careful with those. So handle sensitive data carefully if you're collecting data of your customers, of your buyers, of your audiences, and so on. So try not to collect and store information about their addresses and phone numbers and so on. And so these contents, they can train your AI, like I said, like whatever you upload on Instagram or Facebook, even if you post a comment, it can analyze your sentiments. It can analyze whether what kind of person you are and so on. So got to be careful with the comments on, let's say, on social media. Respect copyright. Now, when we are using, well, AI is by default, in fact, it just picks up artwork by everybody and then it mixes them up and it produces something which is a mix of remix of 100 different artists, right? So this is the basic functioning of AI. But you, at your own personal level, you could probably be careful about the copyright aspects of other artists and so on, and be mindful of the consent management. So every time you visit a website, sometimes they ask you, do you decline cookies? Do you accept the cookies? Because the cookies are like like spy programs that are put on your web browser, which follows all your clicks and visits to websites and all, and then they're going to feed you and target you with certain types of ads and so on. So the cookies, for instance, it's a consent cookie banner. It's a consent management system. So ask people before you store their personal information if they agree to this or not. Then follow data regulations, so do not transfer data to other countries, because in EU we have a certain law, but outside EU they don't follow the same rules and standards. So we've got to be careful with these aspects. So the key takeaways now. So I said that. So just this session, in fact, it gives you an idea of what it means, what data and AI means for your comic art career. In fact, how you could envisage or how this is going to go in the future, and what's going to happen to your artistic career and your efforts in this field, and how to use AI, what to do, what not to do, and so on, and how data and AI can elevate your visibility, audience growth, and monetization. Then you can build your strategy and roadmap, of course. So you got to after going through these slides, you probably now have an idea, a general concept of how to build your future strategy, which direction this is heading. And so you design your data and AI-driven marketing approach, build up your personal branding, and have your unique approach in your artistry, and define your North Star metric. North Star metric means your unique metric that works for you, right? Supporting KPIs, and level up your skills, technical skills. So if you need technical skills, then just go on to Coursera or some other website, the tutorials, and follow and just learn about these things. But be mindful of something, that if you are investing too much time in learning a programming language that tomorrow is going to be automated by AI, then probably it's not worth your time and effort, in fact, to learn a very complicated tool with a steep learning curve at this moment, in fact. So just try to have an idea of what is going to be replaced by AI and what is going to stay, right? And the most important of all is to adopt a growth mindset. So you got to keep experimenting, iterating, and try to continuously improve. So nowadays we talk about lifelong learning. So, especially in the tech and digital marketing and so on, whatever I've said today is probably not valid within 6 months. So probably in 6 months, things are going to change again. So stay adaptable and fast in this fast evolving landscape. My Instagram account, so if you're interested, you could just, we could connect there. And so this is what I do, and all my comic related activities are here. Basically, my webinars and original art advisory and so on. If you're located in Dublin or in Ireland, I have my latest book. This is my publication, which is available at a bookshop called the Library Project. It's in Dublin, Temple Bar Street. I've never been to Dublin, so I don't know where, but you can find it there if you're interested. So it's all about algorithms and Python code, and how to use Python code in writing poetry and sound, basically, right? And if you want to connect through LinkedIn, so this is my LinkedIn QR code.
Thanks so much, Evan. Thanks again. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Bye.